Hello students, in the previous session we were discussing about this new chapter, biodiversity and conservation, and we have discussed about different levels of biological organizations and the diversity at the different levels of organization we have studied. So which are the three different types of diversities we have studied in the previous class? Can you recall? One thing is genetic diversity, and the example for genetic diversity is the 1,000 different species of or varieties of rice in India, or more than 1,000 varieties of mangoes in India. And also we had taken one important example about this genetic diversity regarding a plant, that is Rauwolfia vomitaria, growing in different regions of Himalayan ranges. So this is about genetic diversity, which usually happens, always happens within a species. Right? So varieties or breeds that we see with respect to plants and animals within a species is referred to as genetic biodiversity. Similarly, species biodiversity we have discussed in the previous session, which is referring to individual species. In any given geographical location, in any given geographical area, so how many different species of animals or plants or microbes are present in that area will account for species diversity. And for this we had taken the example of what? Amphibian species present in the Western Ghats of India they are very rich in number. The species richness of the amphibians in the Western Ghats is very rich in number, and we also had considered one example regarding this, that is the genus Philatus. Philatus ಅನ್ನುವಂತಹ ಒಂದು genus ನಲ್ಲಿ there are different species, like we had seen Philatus munnarensis, Philatus sushili, right? Different examples, different species in the same genus we had considered, right? We also had considered about the habitat biodiversity or ecosystem biodiversity. So according to habitat biodiversity, we are going to not only classify the different types of habitats or different types of what you can say the ecosystems, but also the organisms associated with those particular different habitats. So desert irbodu, estuarine ecosystem irbodu, freshwater ecosystem, maybe marine water ecosystem, like this different types of ecosystems we have identified under the diversity at the level of ecosystem. Now in today's class, let us study about the biodiversity profile of the world. See, I have mentioned in the previous session while talking about the definition of the biodiversity, biodiversity comprises of the diversity of living organisms irrespective of whether they are known or unknown, whether they are microorganisms or the biggest of all, right? So that means when we talk about this word biodiversity, it even includes the unknown organisms of the earth. Right? There are so many different species of plants and animals which are yet to be discovered, which are still unknown to the mankind. ಅಂದ್ರೆ ನಾವಿಲ್ಲಿ ಬಯೋಡೈವರ್ಸಿಟಿ ಪ್ರೊಫೈಲ್ ಆಫ್ ದ ವರ್ಲ್ಡ್ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳುವಾಗ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಮೇ ಬಿ ನೋನ್ ಸ್ಪೀಶೀಸ್ ಇರ್ಬೋದು ಅಥವಾ ಅನ್ನೋನ್ ಸ್ಪೀಶೀಸ್ ಕೂಡ ಇರ್ಬೋದು. ಬಟ್ ವಾಟ್ ಎವರ್ ಈಸ್ ನೋನ್ ಟು ಅಸ್, whatever we have understood, whatever is discovered till today, so among that, so what profile we can give of the biodiversity for the entire world, right? So according to IUCN, see, IUCN is an organization. The full form of IUCN you should be knowing: International Union for Conservation of Nature. International Union for Conservation of Nature. So this is the organization that keeps updating about the various data of biodiversity. So according to the data of IUCN given in the year 2004, so a total number of plants and animals described so far, slightly it is more than 1.5 million. See, this is the data according to IUCN. There are many individual ecologists also who have proposed, who have put forth their own data, and according to them it is different. You can look at some extreme data given by some scientific conservationist. So it may be around how much? 20 to 50 million. Some extreme scientists, they talk about the biodiversity, the total number of plants and animals or total number of organisms present on the earth may be around 20 to 50 million, whereas here according to IUCN it says 1.5 million, right? And more scientific approach was given by one ecologist by name Robert May. See, Robert May says it is approximately 7 million, right? So maybe this data may be wrong, or maybe this may be the wrong data. So we cannot actually precisely consider this data is right or this data is right, because we are talking about biodiversity. Biodiversity keeps changing. We keep discovering more species every day, right? That is why it keeps on changing. But one very interesting aspect about the biodiversity is that the species inventories, that means the number of species discovered, may go innumerable in a particular region of this globe. Worldly, see, when we look at this diagram, see the picture of the globe, it shows us the different regions here. The pink region that we have covered, see, this is the equator, the imaginary line running all across the globe at exactly the center of the globe will be called as equator, which we consider it to be 0 degree latitude and longitude. Whereas if you go 23.27 degree north and 23.27 degrees south, approximately 23.5, right? So this particular region, that is from the equator, 23.5 degree north and 23.5 degrees south, will be considered as this is called as tropical region or tropics, right? This region is called as tropical region. You might have learnt in the geography. In this region, it is said to be the highly species richness having area. The species richness of all the plants and animals, including the microorganisms, will be very high in this area, and that is why they say, ecologists say, it is very difficult to complete the species inventories in the tropical region. Whereas the inventories, look at this statement here, the species inventories seem to be more complete in the temperate countries than in the tropical countries. So which are the temperate countries here? See, this zone. So this North Pole and South Polar region will be the polar region. These are the polar regions. So the region between the tropical region and the polar region will be considered as a temperate zone or temperate region. The species inventories seem to be more complete in the temperate region. The reason behind this is only because, see, the temperate countries, in the whatever the countries they lie in the temperate zone, say they will be having the species which can withstand cold atmospheric temperature, cold temperatures of the atmosphere, whereas the species present here, they can thrive different or diversified type of environmental conditions, right? And this will support, see, this region will provide highly most favorable condition for the living of most of the living organisms, and that is why, see, this tropical region supports the highest number of species, whereas tropical region, and if you go to polar region, it will be even more decreased. The number of species goes on decreasing as you move away from the equator. This you are going to consider later, right? So that is what is the meaning of that statement. The species inventories seem to be more complete in the temperate region than in the tropical region. Right? Now, moving on to the some other data. According to the currently available data, so in India, in the world, 70% of the total organisms discovered till today, the total number of species discovered till today, out of all the species, 70% of them is what? Only animals. And if you consider the species of the animals discovered as 100%, in that 70% of the animals will be only the class Insecta. You have learned in the animal kingdom chapter, the arthropoda is the biggest phylum in the animal kingdom. In the arthropoda, class Insecta is the largest class. That is why insects make up to 70% of the total animals, right? And the total number of species of fungi, this is even more interesting. The total number of species of fungi is much more bigger than the number of sum total of fishes plus amphibians plus reptiles plus mammals. That means, see, if you sum up the number of species of fishes plus amphibians plus reptiles plus mammals, that will be equal to the species of fungi present on the earth. That means fungi the kingdom fungi is highly diversified, right? So then less than 22% of plants are there, including all the 5 divisions. Which are the 5 divisions? Kingdom in the kingdom Plantae we come across algae, bryophyta, pteridophyta, right? Bryophyta, pteridophyta, gymnosperms and angiosperms. Including all the 5 divisions, the plants account for only 22% of the total species composition of the world, and there is always less estimation about prokaryotes. It is because prokaryotes are very difficult to find, right? So that I think we have also discussed this in the biological classification chapter. Prokaryotes can be really difficult to be identified, and it is very difficult to study them. That is why the estimation of prokaryotes among the biodiversity calculations may be least, it may be given least importance. Now moving on to this chart, which tells us about the invertebrate, vertebrate and plant species richness around the globe. So invertebrate species richness, so they have put a pie chart, and they are trying to explain you. As I told you in the previous slide, class Insecta will make up to 70% of the total animal population. Total animal species ನಲ್ಲಿ insects ಏನಿದೆ around 70% ಇದೆ, right? Mollusca, crustaceans means arthropods, right, and other animal groups, so they will comprise smaller areas of this pie chart, and all together they comprise only around 30% of the total animals, that is invertebrates. And when you look at the vertebrates, you know which are the 5 different classes of vertebrates, right? Fishes, amphibians, reptiles, aves or birds and mammals. And among these, fishes are the most diversified. Around 50% of the total species are only fishes among the vertebrates, right? And the other half, the other 50% is almost equally shared among the mammals, birds, reptiles and amphibians, right? And when you look at the plants, see, as I just mentioned, fungi is not actually a plant. But why we are including this under the plant? ಯಾಕೆ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ fungi ಅನ್ನು ನಾವು, because of the presence of the cell wall, according to an older system of classification, if you remember we had discussed about this in the biological classification, right? So fungi ಇಲ್ಲಿ cell wall ಇರೋದ್ರಿಂದ, according to older system of classification, it was considered under kingdom Plantae, and that is why we are actually putting it together with the plants now. So fungi will be the largest kingdom, and plants will make up to the other half, approximately other half. And among the plants, which is the most diversified, which is the most highly spread throughout the world, is nothing but the angiosperms, right? So angiosperms will make up the larger part of this, and mosses, ferns, algae, lichens, so all these they are smaller parts. That means the species composition of these organisms is very less when compared to the angiosperms and fungi, right? So this is about the biodiversity profile of the entire world. See, India, where does it actually falls? See, the biodiversity profile of any country, if you want to study, you must be knowing the geographical location of the country, because that geographical location will have a larger influence of the total biota present in that country. How is that? See, in the previous session we have discussed the tropical countries. The countries which lie in the tropical area of the world will have more species richness when compared to the countries lying in the temperate region or in the polar region. It is just because that the tropical region of the world will support majority of the species, maybe plants and animals or microorganisms also, just because most organisms will be exposed to most favorable conditions in the tropical region. And India is a country which partly lies in temperate region and mostly lies in the tropical region. So more than half of the India is falling in the tropical region, and the other small part of the India is also lying in the temperate region. ಅದಕ್ಕೋಸ್ಕರ the species diversity in the southern part of India is very rich when compared to the northern part of India, because the southern part of India lies in the tropical region, right? So, and the northern part like above the Uttarakhand, Uttaranchaladalli ಏನು ಬರುತ್ತೆ ಅದೆಲ್ಲ temperate region alli barutte. Himalayas and all, they will be coming under the temperate region, right? And even the temperatures are very high in the south part of the India, and temperature, when you compare it to the northern part of India, it is very cold in north and it is it is warmer in the south region. So Western Ghats of India, they support a large number of species of amphibians, as we have already come across, right? And now let us look into the biodiversity profile of India. So India will have only 2.4% of the total land area present in the world. So India kestide only 2.4% of the world's land area, but still it supports around 8.1% of the world's biodiversity, which is impressively rich. 2.4% matra land piece itkondu, and India is supporting how much? 8.1%. This can be important one mark question. It can be important one CET question also. Point it. Then India is one among the 12 mega biodiversity countries. Mega biodiversity countries anta helidre, so most of the countries which lie in this tropical region have been identified with the highest biodiversity or highest species richness. Adralli 12 countries alli India kuda ಒಂದು. And around 35 hotspots, not the Wi-Fi hotspot, we are talking about the biodiversity hotspot anta helidre, it is that region where it is supporting the highest species richness. ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಬಯೋಡೈವರ್ಸಿಟಿ ತುಂಬ ರಿಚ್ ಆಗಿರುತ್ತೆ, ಮತ್ತು ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಕಂಡು ಬರುವಂತಹ ಕೆಲವು ಸ್ಪೀಷೀಸ್ಗಳು ಅಲ್ಲಿಗೆ ಮಾತ್ರ ಸೀಮಿತವಾಗಿರುತ್ತೆ, ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಮಾತ್ರ ರಿಚ್ ಆಗಿರುತ್ತೆ, ಬೇರೆ ಕಡೆ ಅಷ್ಟಾಗಿ ಕಂಡು ಬರೋದಿಲ್ಲ. So out of these 35 biodiversity hotspots, Indian subcontinent has 3 such biodiversity hotspots. Nanilli I am using the word Indian subcontinent. Yake anta helidre, here we are also including, along with Western Ghats, we are also including Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka illi Indian subcontinent alli barutte. Western Ghats and Sri Lanka, Indo-Burma region and Himalayan region are the 3 biodiversity hotspots. Which are those? Western Ghats and Sri Lanka is one, Indo-Burma region is one, Himalayan region is one. This can be also an important 1 or 2 mark question for you. You need to remember which are the 3 biodiversity hotspots present in India. Okay, out of 35, 3 are there. And in this huge biodiversity of India, which supports around 45,000 species of flowering plants, means angiosperms, and twice as many as animals. Okay, so around 1 lakh species of animals approximately will be supported in India alone. That means that many species of animals, that many species of plants are present only in India. Again, coming back to Robert May's global estimation. According to Robert May's global estimation, only around 22% of the world species have been recorded so far. Andre total species irodralli only around 22% have been identified, they have been discovered. So around 78% is yet to be discovered, right? So India has, among this 22%, India has about 1 lakh species of plants and 3 lakh species of animals yet to be discovered. Idu discover agiruvanta data alla. According to Robert May's estimation, 1 lakh species of plants and 3 lakh species of animals are to be discovered only in India. And imagine about the world. India has only around 2.4% of the land area, but when you consider the 100% land area, then it will be huge population, huge number of species yet to be discovered. But unfortunately, they will go perished. They will all be extinct even before they are discovered, because see, the nature is ever changing, right? And because of the adverse environmental conditions created against these species, maybe because of the extreme human activities like global warming and all, many species are already going to be extinct, right? Within a short period of time, all these species may get extinct even before they are discovered, right? So that is the irony of biodiversity today. So this is regarding the biodiversity profile of India, and in the next class we are going to study about patterns of biodiversity. Thank you.